Hi, welcome to this week's GTA 5 o'clock. I'm Tim Weaver. I'm here with Dan Dawkins. How you doing, Dan?
Very good, thanks.
Good. So, if you haven't been with us before in any other weeks, let me just explain a bit about what we're doing here. Every week, apart from last week, obviously, because Dan had the man flu last week, we talk about GTA at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Dan is the man you need to hear from because a year ago, he predicted everything we're seeing now in the trailers. So he has great insight into the game, really knows what he's talking about, and has some really interesting stuff for us again today. Today we're going to attempt to map out GTA 5 Los Santos by using the real-world locations and comparing them to the in-game locations, giving you a sense of the scale of the map. Now, you're going to have to bear with us a little bit because it's actually proved to be quite an epic task, this. So you may hear some rustling of paper because we've got half the rainforest in here with us. But we're going to give it a go, and I think you're going to find some of this really interesting. First of all, we're going to take a look at an establishing shot of Los Santos the Rockstar have released. Talk to us a little bit about the kind of scale of the city, and then we can maybe talk about some of the specifics we see in this screenshot.
Well, what's interesting is from this viewpoint, we get a really good overview of all of Los Santos, but whilst it's based on real-world Los Angeles, it isn't constricted by the scale of real-world Los Angeles. And when the art director Aaron Garbett spoke to Game Informer, he said, we've toned down its sprawling nature in Los Santos. We compressed the city so that it never felt dull, but everything's there, including those special mental characters and moments you wouldn't experience anywhere else.
That sort of sums up LA, really.
Yeah, it's quite full of odd bods. And they did, the research for this is meticulous.
Yeah.
Garber adds, says, they took, I think, a lot of photos. I'm trying to think how many it was. I think in the region of 250,000 photos.
Yeah, because, if you look at this map here, it's... although they've really compressed the map in the let's just to pick out a couple of things here. In the very back of this screenshot here, you might see a bridge, a suspension bridge going across there. Now that's the Vincent Thomas Bridge, which is actually in the port of LA. Now, assuming that Los Santos does its own port, which, judging by some of the other screenshots, I think is a fairly safe assumption. That means that they've got downtown here with the skyscrapers in the foreground and then the Port of LA in the background. Now, in the screenshot here, it doesn't look really that far apart. But in reality, in the real LA, they're like, 15 miles apart or something. It's a huge distance. So they really have compressed it sort of north to south, east to west. And in this screenshot, we can see some other kind of interesting landmarks as well. Dan, earlier off air, you were pointing out that we might be able to glimpse the FIB and IA buildings here.
On the sort of top left of your picture, you'll see like a series of skyscrapers, which is the downtown area. But it looks like, from studying the screens and what we know of the missions, on the far left sort of set of skyscrapers, you see the FIB, which is the equivalent of the FBI building, and adjacent to it is the IAA building, which is the CIA building. Now that is like ever so slightly taller, and by looking at the image of the skyscraper, you can see an ever so slight projection from one side of it, so it looks like they could be the two. Yeah.
So we'll come back to that in a second because Dan's got some really interesting insight into a mission that takes place there. But just to give you a quick overview of other stuff we spotted here, on the left here, right in the bottom left corner, we've got the Hollywood Reservoir. I don't know what that will be called in Los Santos, but we are viewing this from Los Santos' equivalent of the Griffith Observatory, which gives you a beautiful view. Anyone who's been to LA has probably been up there and looked out over the city, because this is the kind of view you get from the observatory. We've got I did spot, it's really faint, but behind the FIB building that we've just pointed out, does look like there's another bridge there maybe in the background, and that would be consistent with the Port of Los Angeles, which actually has 3, I think, bridges, which we may get onto talking about later. One of them is amazing. It looks like a Soviet transformer or something. It's like this incredible bridge that I imagine the art director's just dying to do his version of. And then finally, right in the centre here, with the slightly triangular roof just below downtown, I think that's a central library. It might also be City Hall. It's difficult to tell because there's a bit of fuzz there, but I think it's the Central Library. So that gives you an idea of how they've taken landmarks and replicated them in-game. But just looping it back to what we were talking about before, the FIB and IAA building actually brings us on to something that Dan spotted, which is in some of the other screenshots, it really links in. You can see like a mission almost playing out in the screenshots that they've released. Dan, perhaps you'd like to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can do visually what the game does with the map, and if we zoom out in a Google Earth style fashion to get a bigger overview, hopefully you can see that on the screen right now. There is a screenshot where Franklin, Trevor and Michael meet for the first time, and this is the mission that was outlined in Game Informer. Now, they meet at a chopper, and Tim, you've done a bit of detective work with the screenshot, and you say there's like a water cooler in the background, which is a distinctive landmark from the east of Los Santos.
It's right on the periphery of East in LA. It's right on the periphery of East LA. I think it's called the Pilot Water Tower Cold Storage Tower. I don't know, something. But that's what it's got. If you go into Google Maps, you can see that in there, and it's right next to Los Angeles river, and it's actually in Vernon, which is a sort of district of LA. But I think because they've compressed the city a lot, they'll just make it kind of loop it kind of into East LA. And there's like at least three screenshots that they've released so far that have this water cooler in it and water tower in it. Sorry, and because of the way that in the screenshots it's sort of in front of where the guys are standing in front of downtown, sort of visible in the distance, and the water tower is in the middle. I very much think that this is the real life, based on the real life equivalent, which is on the very sort of fringes of East LA.
And what we know from the mission is that Michael and Trevor go off in the chopper. Trevor is an established pilot, so he takes Michael up. Michael suits up in like gear for rappelling. And what they're doing is, under the charge of the FIB, which, as we said, is the FBI, they're having to recover someone from the IAA, the CIA building. Now, this is slightly bizarre, given that the FIB and IAA buildings are literally adjacent. So for one of them to order a sting on the other when they can literally see it seems slightly weird, but apparently that's the setup. So during the mission, we'll see Michael rappel down the IAA building to retrieve like a captured hostage, which he does do. And when he's retrieved that person by bursting through the glass, they will then escape in the chopper. And as they do that, in another adjacent building, Franklin will be sniping.
Right.
Now, I'm not entirely sure what that building is, and I doubt he would be in the FIB building sniping the IAA building.
No, that seems unlikely.
A little bit rich.
Yeah.
So, and then they head off, and there's like a helicopter chase that ensues. And from the screenshots, we can see different snippets of the Los Santos background in that. And eventually it says they return, well, they go via, actually, there's a screenshot of them by the Vinewood sign.
Yeah.
So obviously that must be where part of the action takes place. And eventually, after the shootout occurs, during which you can play the role of multiple people, you know, either as the sniper or Michael leaning out at the back of the chopper and shooting, or Trevor, you can actually play as the pilot. Then you return back to the FBI helipad, it says. Now again, I don't think they mean the FBI helipad on the FBI building opposite where they've just stolen a man from, because that would be insane. So I think they're probably heading back out to this thing we pinpointed in East Los Santos.
Yeah. So along the way, it looks like they possibly get into some scrapes and japes, because there's a screenshot of Trevor. I think he's running away from the cops there while climbing the Vinewood sign. Now I don't know whether that might not even be part of the same mission. But it's interesting that during the mission you just described, you sort of you loop around kind of through Vinewood. And you know, in the chopper, and Michael's shooting another in one of the screenshots, Michael's shooting another helicopter, and actually in the screenshot where Trevor's climbing the Vinewood sign, there is actually another helicopter in that shot. Now I don't know whether that's just pure chance or whether it's all part of the same mission. I don't know. I mean, perhaps it just shows that, you know, with the new GTA you can kind of complete missions in very different ways. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As in, the things that link it are the fact that we can see the Vinewood sign quite clearly in one of the chopper mission shots. The time of day seems quite similar, as in it seems to be sort of sunsetting, sunrise type period, so that does link it. And there's a chopper in the sky. But, I mean, just being logical, if Trevor is piloting the escape chopper, and then in the next scene he's climbing up the Vinewood sign, well, where's everyone else gone? Are they just hanging on in orbit? I don't know. We might be confusing it. We might not. Certainly, Trevor climbing the Vinewood sign isn't something described in the Game Informer preview, so it's likely it's a separate mission.
Yeah.
But I mean, either way, it's a different bit of gameplay.
So we're going to move on from that, and we're going to go east. We're going to go east out of Los Santos. And in the Game Informer article, it referred to Trevor being coming from a Salton Sea. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. I think I'm paraphrasing, but a Salton Sea style area. That's where he lives, and
yeah, he lives in Blaine County, which is described as like a desert area similar to the Salton Sea. So again, you can see that from our map now.
Okay, so as you see on our map, Salton Sea is actually miles out of the real Los Angeles, probably 160 miles out from downtown Los Angeles.
You're not going to do that on a BMX, are you?
No, you're not going to do that in a BMX, but you might do it in a jet fighter.
Yeah.
So again, that shows how they've compressed the map a lot more. They've probably brought that sort of Salton Sea area right the way in to sort of the very eastern fringes of Los Santos, I imagine. Along the way, this is quite interesting. Along the way, they meet. They pass a. Along the way towards Salton Sea, they pass a wind farm, which we glimpsed in the first GTA trailer. And the reason I say they pass a wind farm is because there is a massive wind farm, and I've actually driven past it. It's a massive wind farm on the fringes of Palm Springs, which again is, I don't know, 100 miles east of LA probably. And it's called the San Gorgonio Pass Wind Farm, and it really, I've been lucky enough to drive past it, and it's like literally thousands of these wind turbines just on hills turning, and we glimpsed it in the very start of the first trailer that was released from Rockstar, and that's why I think that this is probably the same place. It's based on that place, and it's on the way to the Salton Sea, the real Salton Sea, which kind of makes even more sense that they'd pop that there, and then once you pass the wind farm and been past that, then you get to this kind of Salton Sea area, where we've seen a screenshot of Trevor standing over a body, pointing a gun at him. And it looks very much like Salton Sea, because if you look at our Google map now, you can see the real Salton Sea actually bears quite a resemblance to this screenshot. Okay, the view that Trevor's got of the mountains is a bit better than the view you're seeing right now in Google Maps, but it doesn't look dissimilar. So I think we can assume that Rockstar sends you out to the east at some point with Trevor's missions and that kind of stuff, and we're seeing really like the sense of where each of these places are likely to be on the map of Los Santos. We've seen that we've got East LA, we've got Hollywood, we've got downtown, all in pretty much the same geographical location that we see in the real Los Angeles, and we're also seeing that on the fringes of the city are all these things that California has kind of become famous for. So we're leaving the eastern fringes of Los Santos now, where we're leaving Trevor's home behind and the wind farm that we glimpsed in the first part of the trailer, and we're kind of heading back at the southern tip of Los Santos, and we're coming to where the real port of Los Angeles is, Long Beach, that kind of area. You can see it on Google Maps now. We've marked up a couple of places where we think a couple of the things that you're glimpsing in the screenshots take place. I mentioned right at the start when we had the first screenshot, kind of the view of Greater Los Santos, that there was a bridge called Vincent Thomas Bridge. Well, that is, as I said, one of the bridges at Port of Los Angeles, presumably going to be called Port of Los Santos in GTA. Just one interesting thing I thought was in one of the screenshots, there's a shot of a guy riding a speedophile. Yeah. I couldn't quite pull that out of the recesses of my brain. Riding a speedophile, and you can see all the cranes and stuff behind him, and that very much is the skyline of Port of Los Angeles. So I think that's definitely where that screenshot takes place. And there's just another interesting that sort of ties it all in together, is that there's another screenshot of another bridge. It's not the same bridge that we glimpsed in the very first screenshot we saw. This one's got more of a kind of like sweep to it than the other one. And the other one was the Vincent Thomas Bridge, or whatever its Los Santos equivalent is called, is a suspension bridge. This isn't a suspension bridge. It's actually in real life called the Gerald Desmond Bridge.
Ah, of course.
I think we've all heard of that one, Dan. But it's a kind of like it's actually a very nice bridge, and looking at it on Google Maps, as you will be glimpsing now, it's quite sort of like visually really interesting. So I doubt very much that they'd want to not include that in the game. I think you'll definitely see equivalent of that, and in fact, I think that's exactly what is in this screenshot you're looking at now. Just one other thing is that there seems to be lots of little glimpses of this area of Los Santos in the trailers, but it's difficult to know how much kind of takes place there. I'm sure there will be some sort of mission there, and given the fact that the game is based around heists, and obviously this is the major port of LA where lots of goods come into the city, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that you might be heading down there at some stage to steal something.
Yeah, I think that's completely plausible. I think also early screenshots showed a figure who looked an awful lot like Trevor on like a remote bit of scaffolding or like a piece of rigging, holding a laser-sighted AK or a sniper rifle. So it seemed likely that maybe that was from a mission.
Yeah.
Also, as we speculated on previous shows, each heist is extremely likely to resemble perhaps a key scene from a favourite movie. So do your own mental maths on films that was good, that had boats in them and things.
Well, I think like I was looking this morning, I remember that Lethal Weapon 2 or something was, I'm sure it was set around there. So there have been lots of different action movies that have been set around there. So from there, we're going to head up. We're going to go in a sort of northwesterly direction, and as we go northwest, we're going to come to Santa Monica, Venice Beach area, or to give it its Los Santos name, Dan.
Vespucci Beach, which is the area of the game where we first glimpse Franklin, and he's there looking for a car for his boss as part of his Repo Man mission. Now, obviously, also from the people who'd seen the first demo of the game, we know that Vespucci Beach, being what it is quite an eclectic sort of boho area where you get like guys on Muscle Beach brushing up against dubious, whacked out of their mind dudes and kind of show offs. It's a real eclectic area. But what you will get in the game, and this has been seen, is like a Jesus preacher style man who's nattering to his congregation. And because there's so many lines of dialogue now, you can sit and just listen and join, like, you know, be part of this guy preaching his message.
Right. Okay.
Throughout the game, there's going to be like incidents of, you know, things you'll just happen upon that will either just be interesting or spark missions. You know, for example, in the desert, you might come across like a car, two guys laid out like a drug deal gone wrong.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they mentioned about that. Like a sort of like, will they be emergent things, you think, or will they be like set?
Yeah.
Right.
Very much like Red Dead, or we've even seen in Far Cry 3 that's just been released. This idea of, you know, you just stumble upon a mission through your travels and you get sidetracked from the core story. I mean, that seems to be the way games are going. That's what GTA 5 is going to do. Okay.
So, Vespucci Beach, not far north of that, sort of northeast of that, is Beverly Hills, or to give it its GTA name. I've lost it now, Dan.
Vinewoods?
No. Something Hills.
Oh, sorry, I'm telling a fib. Rockford Hills.
Rockford Hills, there we go.
Yeah, the Rockford Files Hills, as they never know.
Yeah.
The Rockford Hills, and this is where Michael lives, because as a man who's cut a deal with the FIB, he's rolling in coins.
Yeah.
And he lives there with his estranged wife, Amanda. They've got a beautiful big house. And again, this is where we first see him and we're introduced to him in the game, having a massive row with his lady wife.
Yeah, getting on really well with her. All the trappings of kind of wealth as you'd expect from that area of the real Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's like Beverly Hills, which is, if you've been there in real life, is absurdly affluent. I mean, if you've been there in real life, what you'll also know is you can't see any of it. Like if you ever go on the proper tour of the hills, what else the guy in the bus will say is, and on our right we've got Steven Spielberg's house, and you look and go, well, I can just see a giant 90-foot privet hedge.
Yeah.
Where is he? And they all live in these glorious hidden gated communities. It's absolutely stunning. Seconds later, you roll out. The bus comes out the other side, and you feel like you're in a war zone.
Yeah.
Such as LA. That's the sharp juxtaposition of two worlds of life, really.
I was going to say that's one of the bonuses, I guess, of really condensing the city down, as you get such a disparate kind of experience at very close quarters. Like at one moment you can be in this sort of bohemian kind of area. A few miles, virtual miles north, you've got this really wealthy, area. A few virtual miles east of that, you've got this real down at the hill, very underfunded, kind of poor working class areas.
And what's good is because the game's got a full 24/7 day-night cycle, you can track the inhabitants of Los Santos and their daily duties. For example, you could see kind of workers in East Los Santos getting in the bus in the early mornings, and then if you went to the Rockford Hills in the mid-afternoon or Beverly Hills area, you'd see them working on the gardens, like the exact same guys you'd seen earlier in the game. So yeah, it's a cute way to track, the way things work.
Just picking up on you, I forgot to mention this earlier, East LA you referenced again. I did notice in one screenshot there's like an oil kind of refinery, like a drilling apparatus.
Right.
Not a screenshot, sorry, in the second trailer. Or is it the first trailer? Oh, Weaver, you really haven't done your research yet.
First trailer, isn't it?
First trailer, yes.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. They haven't put anything in this game that just dumped it in there, without thinking. Everything's been put in there for a reason, every landmark and stuff. So I went off and had a look, and people who are familiar with LA probably already know this, but there's actually an oil refinery in a place called Baldwin Hills in Inglewood, which anyone who knows LA will know is, an area that is not one of the most affluent, and it's sort of southwest of downtown. So one of the interesting things I read was that it was quite a controversial kind of area because LA officials had to carry out a report because locals were reporting that they were getting, since the drilling had started, they were suffering ill health and stuff, which I think is kind of like, even if Rockstar don't end up mentioning anything to do with that real life happening, it does give you a real sense. It plays into this idea that there'll be like two very different sides to Los Santos. There'll be the extreme wealth and the poverty, the person that no one cares about and is really downtrodden.
And the poor schmucks sucking up oil fumes all day.
Exactly, yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting, and it's just a smaller side really. But one of the other things, just before we sort of really come back round and do our last little bit of the tour of Los Santos, is just kind of like west of Los Angeles, and of course we've seen already today that they go quite a lot east in this game, but we haven't really seen them go too much west of LA, or have we? Because there's actually, if you remember in the first trailer, there's actually a scene of a crop duster going across what looks like a vineyard. Now, this is just a guess. Well, it's an informed guess, but it is nonetheless a guess. But I did a bit of research into it, and it seems like there's lots of vineyards in the Malibu area of California, which is west of Los Angeles. And because we haven't seen a lot in the sort of western fringes of Los Angeles being used in Los Santos, I just wonder whether that might be where Rockstar take you out in the other direction, and the kind of the presence of that crop dust, the presence of the vineyard and these workers and that sort of stuff, just gave me pause for thought. So it might not be. I might not be correct, but I'm going to chuck it out there and say that that might be the Malibu area of LA might actually be in the game, and it might be this vineyard you're seeing now. So,
and you'll have to meet a middle-aged Australian actor man. He'll go, "I own all of Malibu," as he rolls all full of gin out of his car at a certain time. I mean, that may or may not happen.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. One other thing, while we're in Beverly Hills, there's we glimpsed a shot of in the first trailer a golf course. I think that's probably based on the Los Angeles Country Club, which interestingly is on Wilshire Boulevard, which is a road that runs for quite a long stretch of the real Los Angeles. And why that's interesting is because it runs all the way through to downtown, and it kind of makes sense to me, at least, that if you're designing a game, it would be nice to have a road that connects one part of your city to the other. You said that there'll be the golf course will be fully playable.
Yeah, it's a full-size, fully playable golf course. Bang.
So that's where you'll be playing at the Los Santos Country Club. I think if you look really closely at this screenshot we've got up now, it does actually say Los Santos Country Club on this sign that these guys are standing next to, I think, although my eyes, being in my middle 30s, are definitely on their way out. We'll come back northeast, and for the final bit of our trip, we are going into the hills, going to the Angeles National Forest. And where we've seen sorry about that, I just had to reach my piece of paper miles off from where I am. So yeah, the Angeles National Forest, which is also with the part of the San Gabriel Mountains. We've seen a couple of screenshots here. One I'm going to talk about just very briefly is a shot of Trevor taking a quad bike, trying to drive it away as a police car pursues him. The way the downtown's in behind Trevor here suggests to me that he's riding up into the foothills of the National Forest here, which then takes us through to this screenshot here, which is a bridge, obviously, with a train going across it. Now, this is actually a real-life bridge in the Angeles Forest called the Bridge to Nowhere. I really hope it does go somewhere, because otherwise...
You reach the end of this like a big end of world jutting nowhere. What?
Yeah,
hey?
that would be...
Cannot render.
That would be a disaster. But one of the interesting things I read today is that this bridge is in real life a place where people go bungee jumping. Could there be bungee jumping in GTA, Dan?
I would say that's likely, given that we're going to have like parachuting. Franklin's pretty set up to perform extreme duties. Like each character, as we said before, each character's got kind of side missions that are specific to their unique attributes. Now, given that Trevor's likely to be the anarchic rampage style player, I think Michael will be a bit gunsy and that sort of thing, maybe carsy, and then you're going to get not a carsy in the car.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think Franklin is going to be doing things like quad bikes and driving, because that's what he is. He's a repo man, and if anyone's going to be, you know, bungee jumping or skydiving, it's probably him.
Okay, so that's our tour of LA. Dan, your impressions of the Los Santos that's kind of coming together before our eyes through these screenshots and these trailers?
My impressions?
Yeah.
Exactly as we've described in the last 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing really more to add. I mean, we've talked about the eclectic nature of the map and the scale. Something to mention that's dull but are technical. Rockstar themselves have said that in GTA 4, the draw distance they were able to achieve is something in the region of 1.4 miles. In the new game, they're talking about miles and miles. And as we can see from the Griffiths observatory shot, it really does stretch miles back. And you can even see things like details of flashing lights on rigging miles back and stuff like that. Technically, this game is true, you know, and this is why it could truly be the defining game of this generation. You know, it's going to go out with a bang. So exciting.
Okay, cool. So I hope you enjoyed our tour of LA. Sorry we kept having to grab pieces of paper off the floor, but we've got them all spread out here, and we're going to leave someone else to tidy up the mess. Do come back after Christmas. We won't be doing anything on it over Christmas, because we're going to be sat at home in our pants for 2 weeks. But when we're back in the new year, we'll be taking Los Santos for more of a ride, having a look around the city and really getting a sense for it. If you've got any questions, do let us know in the comments. Ask us in the on YouTube or on CMVG, and we'd be happy to answer them. But otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. See you next time. Do let us know if you spot anything we haven't seen.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And please, Rockstar, release another trailer so that next year it isn't me and Tim sing the blues or recreate the theme tune from GTA 5.
Don't knock it down. It might come to that yet. See you next time.
Bye.